Book 101 all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a veteran, philosophy of the soul, driving ambition, and of course, an author and the author of the book A Soul Spoke to Me, no other than Mr. Mark Haddad.
Hi, Daniel. How are you doing?
I'm fabulous, fabulous, Mr. Mark. And can you please introduce more about yourself and welcome to Book 101 Review?
Yeah, sure. I am, like you said, I'm an Army veteran, and over the years, over the last last deployments and last work, mainly in Africa, I got started to some philosophical thinking around what what are we doing? What is my purpose? And it came out of a very difficult situation in the Congo, where something that terrible that happened in the village and um, I started questioning why I'm here, why we're all here. Like, what is our purpose? Not, I'm meant to be, an engineer or something like that, but more of, you know, what is our goal here in life? Because I realized that every time we're, addressing bad situations, the next day things can go awry again. So, what is really the purpose? And I realized that my children who are 8,000 miles away were really the purpose. And they're the ones that I can curate, not control, but curate an experience in life. And you see time and time again, people who've had different kinds of parents have different upbringings and different pathways. So I realized that the only things that I was really here for was to give them a great experience in life. And the longer I'm out there doing things that are bigger than me and saving lives and going after bad guys. My kids didn't care. Think about it. They're at home. All they know is dad's not home. That's it. They don't care what you do. So the most important thing for the people that are there just purely for experience, they just want you there. You need to help create that experience for them. And so I stopped what I was doing back in 2011 and came back to the regular world, and then got into the technology field. Started going further in the technology field. Now I work in one of the largest consulting and technology companies in the world, and I work in the AI side, so with Microsoft AI and IBM AI, and also in the quantum computing side. And so that has helped me also realize a little bit more around what is reality and what are we really here for, right? So that's a brief intro of me. Yeah, I have two kids. I love working and tinkering and learning on old vehicles and figuring things out. Also have a desert ranch I like to go out there and play in, and veteran in the army and had a great time. So that's a little bit about me.
Indeed, Mr. Mark Haddad. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge to the world. So let's talk about your book, A Soul Spoke to Me. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, it's a philosophy that ties in everything that we do, in the world where we may think it's normal, just normal way of life, tying that in, bringing all different kinds of spirituality and science together to give you a perspective of your life, not from your human point of view, but from your soul's point of view, which is a little different. It's kind of like taking you from out of you and bringing it over here to watch you, right? And so there's a lot of different parts of the story that takes you through identifying that the soul is potentially has a different need. And one of the basic premises is when you think about why does a soul inhabit your body? Now, of course, there's some religions out there that don't believe that there's a separate soul, and okay. But for the rest of us, we think the soul comes into the body. But why? You know, there's eternity. We believe that the soul's floating around before life or before it comes into human or after it comes into human. But if it's in this great ether of everything with no time, why does it even want to come into a body? Like it has everything, right? Well, what I go through is to show you that it doesn't, and that the human experience is the most important thing for the soul. Because without being mortal, you have no experience. You cannot have an experience because mortality means that there's time. And if you think of the universe as this space-time, construct, let's call it a subway tube, right? When you go into this tube, you're experiencing time as things progress in this area where material can exist, material can form. And that gets, when I get into the quantum chapter, start talking about the symphony of energy, it explains why that's important. Um, when you think about that, you start figuring out the reason for an experience is really about emotion. And a spirit alone, a soul alone, does not have emotion. Emotion is a biochemical response to something that our mind translates into a feeling that we have. So when people say, "Oh, you're happy when you're in," no, you're not. There is no emotion. You talk to some people that have been into the near-death experiences and done a lot of research in that, and what you find are people say pretty much the same thing. And what they say is that they feel at peace. They don't really know how to explain it, but they feel at peace. And when you start pulling that apart, you realize that at peace really means that there's no emotion. So when we think about it, without the physical body, there is no emotion. And for the soul that needs emotion, well, there's only one way to get it, and that's going through the mortal experience. So, with that being said, there's a bunch of different stories and chapters that get you there. But the point is, what do you do with that? How do you align what you do as a human to be aligned with your soul so you're happy? I mean, I'm sure you probably had family or friends that have said, I don't feel satisfied in my career anymore, right? And then they
Yes.
end like a 20-year career to open up like some store that you probably had no idea that they thought that would be interesting in hopes for that feeling of satisfaction, right? They may think I want to get out of my relationship because it's not giving me the same thrill as it did before. And so one thing that I talk about is something called the mind bar, which is think of like a high jump, okay, like the Olympics. And you have, going over this high jump, meeting the bar, the area under the bar is how much emotion or how many biochemistry you have in any given moment. And so if you think about like my daughter when she was a little girl, she wanted to watch a scary movie. And for a little girl, once you watch a scary movie, it's a little cartoon. And as adults, we think, it's just a cartoon. But for the child, it's thrilling. And as they get older, the bar keeps getting pushed up because the chemistry underneath it pushes it up. And eventually they want to watch like the worst horror movies in the world, right? And that excites them. The little things don't excite them anymore. And why is that? It's because the bar gets pushed to be able to handle the chemistry that's being generated by the body, to which then it can operate it. Same thing when you go into the people that love adrenaline. Extreme is a drug. Their bar gets pushed up for that adrenaline. And what happens when they come back to normality? They say, oh, this is dull. When you have people that come back from combat, same thing. Their bar had to get pushed up to handle all the chemistry that was going on as stimulus in their environments. And so when we came back, things were dull. And so what happens when things are dull? You sabotage yourself. You sabotage your experience. You decide not to do things anymore because you've already done there. You've been there. It's beneath you. And so that's not good for your human experience. When you think about what does that mean, you look at four categories of the body mind soul connection. this integration flow between the physical form. This is the biochemistry part. I see, we're like energy receptors, different forms of energy wavelength, your eyes, your ears, smell, touch, heat, cold, right? All different energy receptors. We're picking up our environments differently and painting this picture in our mind of reality. Okay, so our body's a big antenna. It captures all this information and it creates chemistry based on the responses from that stimuli. Our mind is big in that. Our mind takes the stimuli and paints a picture for us to which you respond to. We're scared, we're happy, we're nervous, we are excited, we're in love. All these different things are is neurochemistry, is chemistry in the body that's happening, to which we create the emotion. And our soul is like Julius Caesar back in the time of the gladiators, where he's like, it's bad or it's good. We our soul determines which way we want to go. Are we fulfilled or not? So we break this down into four categories, not better or worse, just four different ones that talk about the efficiency of the body, mind, soul, and how we judge people. It's not meant to tell you one's better than the other. It's meant to give you awareness of how we judge things around us. And it gives you a little bit of awareness of yourself. And then it gives you awareness of who you should be a partner with to give you the best experience in life. And so I'll pause there, but it tells you how to navigate your soul's purpose with what you're doing in life. And sometimes you may not feel fulfilled, but you might not be that far away from it.
Mr. Mark, is purpose something innate within every soul, or is it shaped by individual experiences?
It's both. So, you know, our experience in the human form is determined by a number of things. Now, I can't tell you if there are good souls or bad souls. I don't think anyone can tell you that. I can tell you that we're all looking for the same thing. Now, the way we get there has to do with nature, nurture. More specifically on the nature part, everybody's different. When we say everybody's different, we sort of like, oh yeah, everyone's different. But no, everyone is really different. Every body, our bodies are different. Some people are born without an arm. Some people are born with different chemistry structures in the mind. Some people are born without the ability of having certain kind of chemistry because just that system in the body isn't working as we typically see it, what we would call normal, right? In the physiological sense. But when we look at those bodies, we start seeing that the the integration between how the body reacts, how the mind translates, and how the soul feels it gives us an efficiency factor. So with people with a very big efficiency, with a great efficiency, they don't need very much to feel satisfied. You ever have a friend that maybe since high school you've known that didn't really need very much in their lives? They didn't have to have the better car. They didn't need to get the better home. They didn't need to get the promotion. They didn't need to go to grad school or become a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. They were fine doing what they did, and that's all they needed, and they were happy. Meanwhile, people like me and you are ambitious. We think that, hey, this is the point of life. We need to go out there. We need to do more. You need to start a podcast. I need to write a book. I need to get in quantum computing. I need to do these things, right, to satisfy my soul. But the thing is, Daniel, is that it's because I'm inefficient. I have to do continuous amount of work to meet this bar, to keep hitting this bar, or else I get dull and bored, and then I don't feel satisfied. I don't feel fulfilled. When in reality, do we need to keep hitting the bar, or do we just need to lower the bar? So that's one thing I teach. That sometimes you need to lower the bar when you come back from combat. Most, unless you have severe PTSD, most people have to figure out how to lower the bar. When I came back from combat, or the military. I had friends that wanted to go ziplining in Costa Rica, and I was like, ziplining? Come on, man. I used to zip line over hundreds of feet in the middle of Mozambique. When they say, "Oh, let's go car racing," I'm like, "Car racing? Come on, man!" I used to drive these, trucks at max speed through the desert with guns on it. When they say, "Let's run a marathon," I'm like, "Run a marathon?" In Special Forces selection, we ran 3 every week at night just to keep us awake. I don't need to run a marathon. You see what I'm saying? You keep sabotaging yourself because your bar is high. But meanwhile, while you're doing that, you are missing out on the emotions required that your body's striving for. So I teach people how to lower that bar. Also, sometimes your bar might be here. You may be doing this, but you may be just missing the bar. So instead of changing completely because you just don't know what's around the corner, why don't you just figure out how to get that little umph? Be more efficient, right? So this is sort of what we get at. You have to understand like what we are, who we are, why we're here, why you're here, and then figure out this is a machine. We have to understand how to operate the machine. Right now, we're walking through life saying, "Oh, I like this, I don't like that," but we don't know why. You understand why, then you can figure out the how and the what.
Very well said, Mr. Park. Beautifully articulated. And before we continue our discussion, I just want to shout out my ranking tops for the last 30 days because in Mali I got number 9 on the Apple chart, United Arab Emirates 11, El Salvador 13, Uruguay, Norway, Canada, Slovenia, Macedonia, and many more. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world. So, Mr. Mark, how can someone stay connected to their soul guidance during periods of grief, doubt, or existential crisis?
Yeah, so on my Instagram, I connect with all of my readers quickly, right? So please go to Mark Haddad, author on Instagram, and reach out to me, and we can certainly talk. I'm also beginning a consulting capability where I'll be coaching people that may be having these kind of challenges. And one of the big things is not so much just not knowing. That's the first step, explaining. The second step is being a guide, is helping you go through your experience. We got to take apart your efficiency. We have to take a look at how, like your car drives, right? If you have a car that's not as efficient as someone else's, you're going to need more gas, more maintenance to get to where you need to go. And you might just get frustrated. So I help in helping you figure out you from that point of view and getting you aligned. So for entrepreneurs, this is very big because entrepreneurs get a lot of burnout. And that's usually because they don't understand the chemistry nature of the integration of the BMS. They don't understand that they may not be doing something that's aligned with their soul goals. And I know it sounds kind of fluffy, the soul goals, but it's true. Understanding how you create the experiences and the you're giving your soul what it's looking for is very important. So to feel satisfied in life, I might be able to help.
Mr. Mark, what myth or misunderstandings about purpose does your book aim to dismantle?
Mm. The dismantle, that's a very good question. I haven't had that one before. So people get locked in that this is their life and which is true, but there's no way around it. They're sort of dealt with the cards that they're dealt the cards that they have. And going through the movie of life without knowing it's a movie, I'm not saying this literally, right? I'm not saying we're in a simulation or anything like that. I don't know that, right? But not knowing what you're going through can be challenging. And sometimes your perspective of being in a difficult situation is just that. It's perspective. So when you learn how to manipulate your body, how to fix it, how to give it what it's looking for in the right way, and you have to have the right mindset to it. That is really the big thing. So dismantling our current concepts of who you are, that's the biggest thing. Dismantling the concepts of being stuck in what you're doing and never going to be satisfied, not really understanding what's around the corner. I give you that insight, and that's what we're trying to dismantle.
Does your book address how individual soul purpose intersect with collective or communal goals?
That's a really good one, man. You just are reading on that one. Okay, so there's a lot of, so up front I break down, I sort of define a couple of things that there's a lot of, I believe, different definitions for in the world, and people talk about things, right? The biggest thing when they talk about communal souls, the communal consciousness, right? They say consciousness is the same across everyone and everything has it and it's everywhere. um, I don't think so. I think I feel and I know is that the soul is the thing that comes into us right now, whether it's a communal soul and we get a piece of it, or it's an individual soul and they're mutually exclusive. That is left to be determined. However, there is information out there that we know that near-death experiences will go and then they come back. We do realize through that discussion that souls are mutually exclusive. Like it was that person, I guess, soul's being that left, and then it came back. It didn't leave, create a vacuum, and then some other soul part of the consciousness comes in and had to start all over again. It wasn't that. But the soul came back and it saw itself come back. And these people on the medical in the operating rooms saw things in the room that there's no way they could have seen. And so they come back into the being. So there is data out there that things are mutually exclusive. Uh, but I believe that the consciousness is not a thing. It's a state of being. We have consciousness when a soul comes into a body. We know that when a soul's not in a body, or at least not connected correctly, consciousness is not there. Does that mean the soul's not in the body? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I still, let me put it this way. I think the soul could still be in the body. I'm not saying it's not. But it is interesting. Think of a person who's in a vegetative state in a coma. They can't communicate. We don't know if they have consciousness or not. Only if the person comes out of the coma do we then realize, oh, the person's been conscious, or at least they're conscious now. But I think they were conscious the entire time. It's just the machinery was broken, the connectivity was broken. That's why a lot of times those people can hear what's going on. They just can't communicate. They can't think, right? So there's varying degrees of that. I know when, for instance, a friend of mine, like a brother, I've known him for over 30 years. A couple years ago, his daughter passed away, 19 years old, beautiful person, beautiful soul. She was like my niece. And I flew out immediately to go be with him while she was in the hospital. And as I got into the room, I saw her face right next to her face. I saw her next to her smiling. But it's not the way souls communicate to people that can listen. It's not that they smile. It's that they're trying to communicate to me that they want me to see them smile. So they sort of give me the information so that my feeling is that she's smiling. And I had no idea why. Like I'm sitting, I'm dumbfounded, and I'm looking at my friend. I said, "Hey, do you don't see that?" He said, "No." I'm like, I kind of kept it myself for a little while because it was so powerful. I started crying, and I don't cry very easily. But I'm sitting here looking at this person. I didn't know why that she was smiling, but come to find out, she was trying to calm me down because she was no longer there. She was connected to the tubes, but she was no longer there. Her soul has left, and she's there to try to let everyone know, hey, she's okay. Same thing happened with my father. Same thing happens with other people that I've seen. There are certain situations that weren't good. Um, you know, I do think that there's grounds to think about a communal soul that's out there, the spirit that we think about. In Catholicism, we have the Holy Spirit that's everywhere, that goes to everyone. Everyone has a piece of it. Could be the same thing. I kind of think it could be. Um, but do we think that it's individual? Here's a question. If it was individual, and since the beginning of time, say when there's only 1,000 people in the world, a very long time ago, and those people passed away, maybe going to somewhere else afterwards, right? Let's follow Catholicism for a second. There's heaven or hell. Okay, maybe a small line to get to heaven. I'm jesting a little bit. But now we have 8 billion people, and more than 8 billion people have died along the way. So is there like a very long line in heaven to get to heaven or hell? Is there a soul making machine somewhere in the universe that's creating more souls? Because they're creating it faster than we can do anything with it. We don't know what that is because if you think about like in reincarnation, for instance, right, that implies that every soul is mutually exclusive. Your soul is yours because so if someone passes away, their soul leaves and goes into the new body. That means that's a very particular soul. So that means there's other particular souls. That means they're all particular souls. But is that the case? I mean, you could say, I mean, what if we could say the population grew so much to 8 billion people that because all souls are getting cut even in more thin slices, that we have less soulful people in the world. it's not a nice of a world because of that. We have more problems, right? You can slice it up all different ways. But there's a chapter on resurrection and what is that, or reincarnation and what does that mean? So interesting.
Mr. Mark, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season as well. Comedy 101 in second season, food 101 in fifth season too, geography 101 in fourth season, Law 101 in its first season, Love Letters in third season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health 101. Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Mark, what do you hope readers will do differently after engaging with your book, and how might be
I think,
a reference
I,
to all?
yeah, I believe, I hope people will see who they are and where they are in life. I hope they will understand judgment and why it is important in some things, but other things we're judging the wrong things. We're judging things based on our human perspective, not our soul's perspective. I want us to understand how we think of life as a gift that we go through, and we have to understand our machinery, the machinery we're given, and figure out how to optimize it. Think of it as from an engineering perspective. How do you optimize your machinery so you can have a great experience? And that's what I'd like to do for people. So I would love to have people reach out to me, and I'd love to chat with them and hear their thoughts.
Mr. Mark Haddad, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world through your book, A Soul Spoke to Me. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book itself?
Thank you. Yeah, go out to Amazon. A Soul Spoke to Me. Also, my website, Mark Haddad Author, and the Instagram, Mark Haddad Author. I'll see you there.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Mark Haddad, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Mark, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, David.
Bodycom people, see you soon.